Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm here to talk about the TV show Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, Season 7 just recently ended, and I really wanted an excuse to talk a whole lot more about it than I would usually get the chance to in like a favorites video. So this is going to be a discussion of the newest season of Game of Thrones, some of the highs, some of the lows. This is going to be a Gush / mini groan session. I did have some issues that I wanted to talk about, but mostly I just wanted to talk about Game of Thrones because I get so into this show, it's ridiculous. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is going to be a Game of Thrones Season 7 discussion. Spoilers abound for all of the episodes, so let's just get going. We are going to start out with some of my small faves, things that can be covered pretty quickly. Little Lyanna is amazing. I still love her, and I'm so glad she's still around. When I started this show, I didn't think that one of the direwolves was going to make me cry, but then Nymeria came along and oops. I have a friend who's been theorizing about Jon Snow meeting a dragon for a few seasons now, and it went down exactly how she predicted it did, and I just like to share that I'm really happy for her. Daenerys' magical white coat that she wore when she had to fly beyond the wall was the single most beautiful piece of costume this entire season, and it probably goes in a list of top 5 for the best outfits the show has ever had. That coat was gorgeous. I watched the scene where Arya and Brienne fight in Winterfell 3 times. 2 times were like one right after another, and I would go watch it again another 10 times right now. It was perfect. This season had a couple of the coolest battle sequences of the entire show. Obviously, it was exciting to see the dragon get some fight time. We have been waiting for that for so long, and it was so satisfying. It was so beautifully shot, and it was just amazing to look at. I was a huge fan. I was also a huge fan of the pirate battle, despite the fact that I think Euron Greyjoy this season had kind of a 2005 emo thing going. Despite that, he looked cool as hell destroying pirate ships. And finally, I feel like we all knew the Ice Dragon was coming at least a little bit, but it was so cool, so I don't even care. Now on to some of my more minor groans for the season. I know this is not an unpopular opinion, but I just gotta say that Bran still remains uninteresting. His storyline still bores me, the actor still bores me, and I don't think he said like 3 useful things that you could string together for the entirety of his run on this show. Maybe someday I'll care about Bran, but it's unlikely, and it sure didn't happen this season. I am really annoyed at the treatment of gay ladies this season on Game of Thrones. They were very minor. Well, not gay ladies. I guess it would be more accurate to say queer ladies. Bi ladies, maybe. But we had Yara and Laria, and they had a thing, and they were immediately punished, and that was just not a great sequence of events considering how long I've waited for queer ladies to re-emerge on Game of Thrones. And after Yara last season flirting with Dany, I had really high hopes for gay ladies, but this show continues to not treat the gays very well. Let's just not talk about Ed Sheeran. Let's just not talk about it. Even though we got a payoff in the final episode, I was really frustrated by the Arya Sansa stuff that was happening for this entire season for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it didn't make any sense, and even if there was a payoff at the end, the rest of the season didn't make sense. Either they were playing Littlefinger the entire time, in which case the weird confrontation in Arya's room with a bag full of rubber faces was just in the hopes that maybe he was listening at the door, or they seriously were fighting for most of the season and just managed to turn it around at the end, and that's stupid. I'm sorry. I was deeply frustrated by what I believe was the 6th episode when all of these guys got to go traipsing around the north. All of them had a reason to want to kill one another, but because of duty, they were able to pull it out and just have normal dude conversations, and the parallel storyline that was happening to this was 2 sisters who couldn't get their shit together for an entire episode, and they were just being catty to one another. It was an annoying imbalance, and considering Sansa and Arya are 2 of my favorite characters, I thought it was an incredible disservice to their characterization thus far in the show. It was just painful writing for female characters, and that is not a first for Game of Thrones, so I don't know why I expected more. Daenerys and Jon have absolutely no chemistry, and I have never cared less about a couple in my life. So this is how I've been explaining it. Jon and Dany had like a few conversations where they just talked to one another, and then everyone around them was like, oh man, you guys are sure making eyes at each other. You sure like each other. Here's what I compare it to. I compare it to when grown adults see a girl baby and a boy baby sitting next to each other, and because they're sitting close, the adults are like, aw, they make such a cute couple. They're so flirty. And you're like, no, they're babies. They have no chemistry. They have no concept of chemistry. They're just sitting there, and just because they're in the same space doesn't mean that they have to be in love with each other. Seriously, when we got to the end of, like, episode 6 and John proposed, I actually scoffed and rolled my eyes. Like, there was nothing there for me, and I just don't care. And I know maybe I should be talking about the incest angle of this, but on this show, like, whatever, that's not gonna be the thing that bothers me. I just want to be compelled by chemistry, so. Also, there was some mansplaining this season when Sam talked over Gilly as she made one of the most important reveals of the entire show. I was already like, oh, of course, Sam's gotta mansplain away the situation, but then later, when he took credit for it, Sam. This is the first season I've almost kind of liked Sam, so maybe we were on a delicate balance here, but I was like, dude, this isn't you. You're supposed to be, like, the nice guy. Gilly found that information. Sam was a whiny piss baby about it, and then he took credit for it. So that was annoying. There was also that weird scene where John was, like, mansplaining Danny's fertility to her. That was weird. Why does he get to do that? I'm really glad the Hound is back. I think he's a really cool character, and I'm excited for my friend Dave, who's my cosplay buddy, and he cosplays the Hound. I was excited for him. And I'm glad that the Hound has, like, this new group of people to be with with the Brotherhood and everything, but their storyline was not remotely compelling to me, and I was kind of glad that we didn't get that much of it this season, because I didn't think it was that great. And finally, this isn't a groan at the show itself, but more my panic. If Tormund is dead, I am going to be so upset. Alright, final stuff for this video. Let's truly gush about some of my favorite moments of this entire season. Arya has been my favorite character for seasons and seasons of this show, and she will always be my #1 girl, but Sansa could kick my ass and I would thank her. And just so everyone knows, every time someone tells me they don't like Sansa, my love for her actually grows stronger. So if anyone would like to disagree with me about who she is as a person, you can go ahead and leave that in the comments. I am ready for my love for Sansa to reach, like, the power of the sun, and I'm almost there. So just a few people telling me she's terrible or badly written, go for it. I'm ready for my love to grow. Connected to that, round of applause for Littlefinger being murdered! He's dead. He's dead. Even though, as I've said, I think the setup for this scene was a little forced and ridiculous, that actual moment when they're in that room and Sansa makes the accusation and then she slowly turns and looks at Littlefinger, I screamed. I, like, jumped up on the couch. I was fist pumping in the air. I said at the beginning of this season that there was no way I was going to be happy unless one of the Starks had personally murdered Littlefinger by the end of the season, and I'm just really glad that Game of Thrones heard my prayers on that one. I've also decided I want a mug that says Littlefinger tears on the side, and that's what I'm gonna drink out of from now on because I'm just so happy he's dead. Gendry lives! Thank you! I absolutely loved Gendry when he was on the show, and I have been one of those people every season that's like, is he still rowing? Is he still rowing? When's Gendry gonna be back? So when he not only returned, but Davos got to be like, oh, I thought you would still be rowing, that was such a high point. Plus, him meeting Jon was one of my favorite character, like, crossover moments of the season. We got so many of those. I'll talk about all of my favorites next, but I just thought it was such an excellent way for these two characters to meet and to bond, and of course they get along. The only thing missing from this reunion was Gendry being like, hey, I was bros with your sister for a long time. Any chance she's still alive? Like, come on. It's not even that I'm that into Gendry and Arya as a ship. It's just that I love them so much as two characters together that I need them to acknowledge that they're both still alive so that they can go back to being great. So let's talk about favorite character interactions, favorite character crossovers, finally meeting, people being reunited. All of my favorites, like I said, Gendry and Jon was up there. It was a great moment. They have some great, like, backstory that's led them to that, and I thought it was executed extremely well. As I have also already said, Arya and Brienne, I was so happy for Brienne this season. Brienne is in the place that she needs to be at. She is with the people she is supposed to be with, and that moment where she gets to bond with Arya again was just done incredibly well, and I think that they are two characters who are going to get along, even though we don't have that many episodes left for them to get along in. Speaking of Brienne, I loved Brienne and the Hound in the final episode. I did not expect to, but they were like a divorced couple who were like amicably divorced, and they get together and they're like, oh, we did a really good job raising our murder baby. She can go off and murder everybody. It was so cute and unexpected for those two characters, but I loved it. Jon and Tyrion got to meet up again after so many seasons, and I loved the line where Tyrion finds him brooding and he's upset because Jon looks better brooding than Tyrion ever could. It was great. I did initially like Jon and Dany meeting. I thought the meeting itself between them was really interesting, and to see these two characters who we've had so much build-up for finally get to interact was an exciting moment that was only bolstered by the fact that Davos is amazing. His sad little introductions for Jon were making me very happy. But that initial moment when Jon and Dany met, I was like, oh cool, this is gonna be like a really cool relationship. And then they started interacting more and I was like, oh, never mind, this is really boring. Sansa and Arya, I mean, it was really good initially too. I liked them talking in the crypts and sort of updating each other on where their lives have been for the past few years. I thought it showed so much development between those two characters and the amount of love that they do have for each other, which is why the episodes after that were so frustrating, because that initial meeting was so well done in my opinion. Unexpected, but I loved the meetup of Sam and Jorah, and the reason this is unexpected is because I have spent 7 seasons absolutely not giving one shit about those two characters. Sam has always been kind of eh for me. Jorah has always been kind of eh for me. So when they met up and I actually really liked that whole situation and them kind of being like, oh, I know your dad and I can help you, I liked it. I just did. And then it got weirder because they both continued to not annoy me, and that's unexpected for both of them, but they still have a season to go. The Fellowship of the Idiots, oh man, that was great. All of them up in the north, and all the stupid little conversations, I loved it. I ate it up. I could have watched an entire episode just of that, honestly. Tormund interacting with everyone is always a joy. Gendry being all grumpy up in the snow. For some reason, everyone's just kind of getting along and bantering. It was great. And of course, I have to talk about finally the meeting of basically everyone important in this show ever in the final episode. There were just so many great moments of characters that we've seen kind of interacting or that we've seen on their own for so long that it was so cool to see all of those worlds clashing into one. That time when Olenna basically obliterated Jaime Lannister has been making my life for weeks now. It was such a perfect outro to her character. It was everything. She has always been everything, and I'm sad that that line is now dead, but man, what a sassy group of people. Also, can we all just acknowledge that Davos was basically the true king of this season? Every single line that he had was gold, and I loved that his character development was that he now corrects Jon's grammar. It was such a little moment that had been building up, but it was great. I have loved Davos for seasons, and I loved him getting a much bigger role this year. And finally, my aesthetic this year has got to be every single Stark person shutting Littlefinger down, episode after episode after episode. We got Sansa with one of the best lines of the season going, "There's no need to seize the last word, Lord Baelish. I'll assume it was something clever." Bran being all creepy and, you know, stupid as usual, but him saying chaos is a ladder and Littlefinger's face, I was cheering, I was so excited. Every single time Arya is within 10 feet of Littlefinger, she was making comments or making faces, and I was so happy because I have been waiting for Arya to see Littlefinger and be like, no, absolutely not. And we cannot forget our honorary Stark brother taking Littlefinger down to the crypts and just really giving him a good whooping. I would watch another full season of all of the Starks continually shutting Littlefinger down, but I don't have to because they killed him. Okay, so those are basically all of my thoughts about this season of Game of Thrones. I'm sure there are more, but those are the highlights of the season for me, both highs and lows. What did you think of this season of Game of Thrones overall? Favorite moments, least favorite moments? Please share any and all of those things down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!